everyone. Welcome to the Speakeasy.
I'm Zach.
I'm Jake.
We are the Dirt Road Men.
Oh yeah, we are.
Here for this this week's talk video. And we wanted to talk about cigars. And particularly cigar culture and cigar laws. Basically things surrounding the cigar industry.
By laws, what do you mean? Like actual legal or?
Yeah, like legal stuff that's happened in the last like 2-3 years dealing with cigars. Because one thing that I noticed, and it was brought up in a Steven Crowder video recently, where he was talking to Dennis Prager about cigars. Because Dennis Prager, he started PragerU, right?
Mm-hmm.
He does fireside chats every week, where he literally sits in front of a camera and unpacks an idea while he smokes a cigar.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, I guess Crowder got into cigars because of him. And so they had him on literally just to talk about cigars and the cigar industry and stuff like that. I think the first and foremost thing, and this particular thing was actually brought up by TNT Cigars for me, is that the cigar industry is lumped in with big tobacco, like all the time, like Marlboro cigarettes and stuff like that. And they're not. They're completely separate companies.
No.
So the cigar industry keeps getting lumped in with like big tobacco and Marlboro, right?
Yeah.
Companies like Marlboro. I'm picking on them because they're the biggest one.
Yeah.
And they're really not. They most of them are smaller companies. Most of them take special care, and cigars in particular, because they're not inhaled. The FDA actually had to release a study that was done under the Obama administration. They released it in 2016. That people that smoke 2 cigars a day or less, the increased risk for cancer is basically nothing. Like, it's negligible. I also found out that secondhand smoke, at least when it pertains to cigars, is not a thing as far as dangers. Unless you fill a room with poor ventilation with cigar smoke, and then eventually it'll get harder to breathe. But that's a much more immediate problem and a much less, like, over time this is going to kill you problem.
Yeah.
So that stigma is out the window, like, right out of the gate, whereas cigarettes kill 33% of the people that smoke them, which means 66% live. They don't say that. 66% of people that smoke cigarettes do not die of cancer.
Yeah. It's just 33% do, and that's more than...
That's a heavy risk.
Yeah.
There's a 35% increase in the chance you will get lung cancer if you smoke cigarettes. But there's almost no increase in a chance of you getting any kind of cancer from smoking cigars, even mouth cancer.
Yeah. I mean, that's smoking, 1 or 2 a day.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas most people who smoke cigarettes, if they say they smoke 1 or 2 a day, they're smoking 1 or 2
Packs. Yeah.
That's 20 to 40.
But there's almost as much tobacco in a cigar as in an entire pack of cigarettes.
Yeah, but, okay, like these cigars, I mean, they weren't the biggest, but...
Right.
Say in these cigars, there were... How much of those do we actually smoke?
Probably, I would say 80%. These are sets.
One of these might have been mine. That's like cigar nubs.
Yeah, that's like 75% of a cigar smoked and 25% left.
These were that long. This is 1/4 of a...
Maybe a third. It's not half.
No, it's not half.
Not
but
half.
No, I'm just saying is like, but once you get... My point is
You rarely smoke the whole cigar?
you rarely smoke the entire cigar down as far as I will smoke a cigarette. I will smoke a cigarette until I hit the filter sometimes. Sometimes it just gets too hot on my lips, so I just flick the last tiniest little bit of off the filter, but usually the filter's still burnt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it tastes bad, is when the filter burns.
Yeah.
Or on these, I mean, you still have like 2-3 cigarettes worth.
Yeah, true. Although in that easel I have over there, I'm pretty sure I've got like 6 packs of cigarettes and 1 cigar. But
quite possibly.
I have an easel that I swear is at least half an inch longer than your average Churchill. Isla del Sol, for those that haven't kept up with our channel very much. The other thing about cigars, and we've talked about this in a couple of our really old videos, my favorite thing about cigars is you can go to a cigar shop and you can sit down, and if you don't talk to anybody, people will leave you the hell alone. Mm-hmm. You're going to sit in a nice plush chair, probably be able to look at a TV. At the one we go to, there's card tables and stuff. And just sit and do whatever you want. You can bring your own alcohol if you want to. There are laws against alcohol sales, which is hilarious because tons of people love to have whiskey in a cigar. And just held that like a cigarette. There are a lot of really strange regulations that go with cigars that make sense with cigarettes but don't make sense as much with a cigar. So if secondhand smoke's not really a thing, you would think it wouldn't be a big deal to have them in an establishment that allows them. But in our state, for instance, you can do it in private clubs and cigar shops. In California, at least in the Bellevue area, I guess it is, you can't even smoke them in cigar shops. They don't have cigar lounges. They only have cigar stores.
Really?
Yep. But you know
do they have the private club
loophole?
Or...
Nope.
Really?
Yeah.
Because, man, here in Kansas, the private club loophole is awesome. As long as you're not serving food or drinks, you can have completely naked ladies walking around.
Yeah, and you can also, like, not even actually check people to make sure they're members of private clubs in Kansas.
Yeah. As long as they're there with...
to, but, like, they don't enforce it hard. They just have to do it so you can smoke in their bar.
Yep.
I'm happy they built that in, because now it gives bar owners an option, right? Because building in an option like that, I'm a lot more willing to accept.
Yeah.
Because now you've shut it out to where people don't have to be forced to sit with your smoke. But if the establishment owner chooses, and I'm definitely for the freedoms of the establishment owner, they can let you smoke. All they have to do is institute some kind of private club thing. But there's another thing that happened here recently, and I understand this with cigarettes, because cigarettes are actually more addictive than cigars, also, as measured by the FDA, same study. Not that I put a boatload of stock in the FDA, but I have a general distrust of government, so maybe I'm not the best person to reference, but I'm choosing them because they're a generally well-accepted knowledge base. Like the FBI, I go to them for ballistics info all the time.
Oh, yeah.
They're why all my guns are in 9mm except my wife's. Like any gun I buy, any gun I've bought, has been 9mm except that first 45.
Fair enough.
But, they won't allow a cigar shop owner. The cigar shop owner, like say you go in and talk to our buddy Alex. He says, you know what, you're just starting on cigars. You're really interested in cigars. I think you'll like this one. Why don't you take one for free? And just see if you like it. He could go to prison for that.
Really?
Yeah. Federal law now requires him to not be able to do that.
Huh.
Which is super irritating, because that was something Alex would do. He never did that for me, but I didn't start smoking cigars until well after this law was passed. But Alex is the kind of guy, in the times that I've talked to him, that he knows that if he gives you a cigar you like, you're going to come back and buy more from him. That's certainly been the case for me.
Yeah.
And so I definitely think that that hurts the cigar industry, and the cigar industry, especially compared to the 90s, is a really small industry. We're talking, like, tops a $4 billion industry, which sounds like a lot, but if you think about it, like, a $4 billion entire market, that's cigars, that's cigar accessories, cutters, lighters, everything for cigars. All of it. Humidors, all of it. $4 billion market cap. And you can Google that. I may be a little bit off.
I was going to check out. I'll get there. Compare that to bourbon.
The laws?
No. The size of the industry.
Oh, yeah. The whiskey industry is definitely bigger.
Well, I meant just bourbon.
But it's exploding right now. So that's... I don't know if that's the best comparison. We'd have to compare it to the 90s with inflation.
Okay, yeah. Never mind then.
But it is a smaller industry than whiskey. At least in general. I don't know about bourbon.
It is.
I imagine it is.
You said $4 billion?
Yeah.
Buffalo,
It's like really, really, really low.
Buffalo Trace is expanding. Buffalo Trace Distillery itself is expanding by over $1 billion in the next year and a half.
Yeah, so that gives you an idea. It's a really small industry, and a lot of cigar shops, wow, this cigar is just dying. This is a cheap budget cigar that we'll post the review for on Friday. But it is, I'm like having to tear off the wrapper and go down to the binder right now. I'm a little upset about that. If I'd have known that, I'd have brought down one of my factory throwouts, because at least this doesn't happen.
I'm smoking the same cigar, and mine's not having the same problem, but...
Wow, it's all gone. I'm down to the binder.
How's that affect the flavor?
Most of the nuanced flavors are gone. It's just grassy tobacco flavor. If it starts coming apart in my mouth, I'll put it out. I don't care if it's a video talking about cigars. I'm not doing that.
This particular cigar was not great.
Yeah, I've never had this problem with the snake oil before.
I have one time, but I also lit it with a map gas torch.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just the sheer heat of lighting it split it apart.
Anybody that smokes cigars regularly, like premium cigars regularly, is going to look at what I just did and go, wow, you're still smoking that? But yes, I am. Really, there's a lot of stigma surrounding them that I don't get. Because and I started to go into this before our camera died on the last video we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my favorite conversations I've had with strangers are in a cigar lounge over a cigar.
Yeah.
And I think I told an anecdotal story on an old video where, like, these two men sat and talked in a cigar lounge for a long time, right? One of them was in a business suit, and one of them was dressed in, like, dirty t-shirt and jeans. You look down. Like me.
Well, this isn't really dirty.
They had a good long conversation, and then they get done after talking for like an hour, and the one guy was like, well, we should meet up again sometime and have this chat again. And the guy introduced himself and shook his hand, and the other guy's like, I know exactly who you are. I'm your gardener.
Yeah.
So, like, it's a really good way of, like, bringing men together, and a lot of the best conversations we've had have been, like, standing outside with cigars, or since I've been here, sitting down here with cigars.
Or sitting out in the office.
A lot of our best business ideas have been discussed over cigars. So, including a revision of the whiskey box, by the way.
Should we? No? Okay.
Not yet. But I am going to pull the whiskey box down this weekend. We have a couple units left, but I'm going to pull what we have down because we're going to revamp the whiskey box and try it in a different method because it took us too long at the rate we were selling to get the profit margins we wanted. So, because don't forget, this is a business.
Yeah.
In fact, initially we started our videos as like marketing for our business. It wasn't until later that we started trying to position our videos in such a way that we could make money off the videos themselves. Which still isn't happening yet, but for whatever reason we've had trouble converting our Facebook audience into YouTube subscribers. But I thought I'd take a short talk video to make a case for like why the cigar industry should not be so heavily regulated, and a lot of especially adult men, the type of men that we think would like our channel, and just adult men in general in our target audience should definitely take a second look at cigars and give them a try, because the health risks, especially for just trying a couple cigars, are nil. And I smoked cigarettes for like 6 months, and I'll tell you right now, a cigar for me is a lot more pleasing.
I've smoked cigarettes for about 7 years, and a cigar for me is a lot more pleasing.
Yeah. Just more expensive also.
Yeah.
Depending on how you buy them.
Yeah, and depending on how many
you have in a day.
Yeah.
But we'd love to hear random thoughts and random funny laws about cigars. I did look up, if I can pull it back up here, funny laws on cigars, and like all I got was that people like the FDA and stuff are being required to reevaluate a lot of their cigar regulations and how it's regulated. In fact, the FDA apparently is planning to reevaluate its cigar regulation this year. So I'm really hoping they do that. Another thing that came to my attention, and I have to try this to find out, because I've never had a real Cuban cigar. In fact, out of us, ironically, I think Momo's the only one, and I think he smokes the least cigars. He smoked a lot of cigars for like 3 months.
Yeah. I think his wallet was just like, hey man,
Momo, when he gets into anything new, will dump a couple grand into it in like a month or two. And then he'll just disappear from it altogether. But, I've heard that Cuban cigar quality now is actually not as good as like Honduran cigar quality. Dennis Prager brought this up, and I'd never heard somebody make that claim before, so I started looking around. And I've heard a lot of other people say that. Like, they hear all this good stuff about Cubans, but then when they actually try Cubans, they don't like them as much. Like us with Knob Creek.
Mm-hmm. Or the McKenna.
Or the McKenna, yeah. The McKenna was talked up more than the Knob Creek for me. And so it was more disappointing. And I've heard that a lot of people tend to have that with Cuban cigars. So if you reach for the holy grail of cigars and have a Cuban, be wary that they may actually not be that good, especially since Castro died. Because what really happened was they nationalized the cigar industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as you noticed, a lot of the cigar industries we talked about, they left Cuba after that industry got taken over by the state. The state meaning the country. And
so all the good cigar makers that everybody was, they went from Cuba to Honduras? Or
Honduras, Nicaragua, and Ecuador.
Ecuador. Okay.
And so I have now, once Dennis Prager mentioned it, I looked it up, and I found a lot of people saying that they actually prefer those cigars versus Cuban cigars. And my mind, my inherent bias wants to immediately chalk that up to it's because communism is garbage.
Now,
it ruins literally everything. But I heard that the best of Cuban cigars are the particular like 2 or 3 cigar companies that Fidel really, really liked.
Well, somebody who walks around with a cigar, like somebody who smokes a cigar 24 hours or every waking hour of the day, they've got a cigar in their mouth, probably going to go ahead and take their preferences on cigars.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Ecuador, I don't know why I forgot that was like its own place,
Mm-hmm.
but the Camacho Ecuador.
Mm-hmm. He's like one of your favorite cigars, right?
Yeah, and oddly enough,
it's
a
one of
natural.
mine too. Because
Yeah.
I had it the other day. He gave me one on the 4th of July, the Camacho Ecuador, and it was phenomenal. I was so upset when it went to end. Which, for a cigar, when it ends, is when it starts to go bad. It's burnt too hot, or it's gotten too far back, or it's done this garbage, which has honestly never happened to me before.
Mine hasn't.
Yeah. I don't know what happened.
I think you were just like hitting yours too fast.
It might have been. It's very possible that this particular failure is my fault.
And it also just might be because most of these are still hand rolled, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all of these ones are hand rolled. I would imagine.
I believe
because they're not. The machine ones are okay, but like the AYC Grenadiers, you could tell that there was no person involved in that.
Yeah. There are some higher end machine rolled cigars. I can't think of them right off the top of my head. Now, higher end for machine rolled really means like you're gonna get into the $6-7 range. But that you won't think of as machine rolled when you first have them. Most of the time, they're also box packed. They're the little square-ular ones.
Oh, okay.
But that doesn't mean all box packed ones are machine rolled.
Yeah.
But I did think that was interesting. I'd love to get some more thoughts on that. I haven't had a Cuban cigar. I've been able to get a hold of them.
Whoa. Up until recently.
There was an embargo.
Yeah. So,
Thank you, Kennedy. I thought that the embargo was reinstated, but I can't remember.
Oh, it might have been. I don't know.
But nonetheless, Cubans happen because capitalism is diametrically opposed to regulation. And so if you regulate something, that usually just means there's going to be a black market for it.
Mm-hmm. Like a moonshine in the Prohibition days.
Yep. It's a perfect example.
Or Cuban cigars since the 1960s.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jake. I never came up with that anecdote on my own.
Anecdote?
Sure. What did I say?
Antidote. I've been poisoned.
I've been poisoned, me boy.
But, anyhow, I thought I would give that take. I'd love to have some discussion and comments with people that watch our videos, particularly anybody that's really into cigars, to hear about random cigar laws that you've heard that are just ridiculous. I think most of them are ridiculous, aside from, like, saying that you can't lace them with other things, even legal substances. But most of the time, even that, it comes with caveats, like you can do it, you just have to say so.
Well, would you consider putting what's that oil?
Essential oils.
Essential oils.
Self-flavoring. I wouldn't call
lacing?
that. I wouldn't call it that, but technically I think it is. So,
that's been laced, man. Oh, what was it laced with?
Yeah,
cappuccino flavored.
Maybe that was the wrong word to use because it makes you think of like laced weed or something. But
brother,
yeah. What I find interesting is that cigars don't directly affect your brain chemistry when you smoke them. They don't, at least by any study that's been published, other than like you tend to relax when you smoke them. But like it's not a narcotic like weed is. But there's this huge move to pull all this regulation off of weed. But then you look at all this unnecessary regulation on cigars that maybe deserves to be on cigarettes. I don't even think it deserves to be on cigarettes, but you can make the case that it deserves to be on cigarettes more than you can on cigars. And it's hilarious there's no movement on it because most of our generation and honestly most everybody since the 90s just doesn't care.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll hit another cigar explosion here before too long like we're having with whiskey right now, and we'll get to see a lot of cool new like boutique cigars and stuff like that. But for now, I guess we're just kind of stuck with these random regulations. And I think the ones that bother me the most are really the ones that like regulate how cigar sellers sell their cigars, cigar shops, and where people can smoke them. Because if somebody wants to open a shop where you can smoke them, I don't see why that's an issue. As long as the guy, like if they're renting from a guy, he has to be okay with it, or she, whatever. They. or or the shop owner. Beyond that, I don't see why it should be an issue.
Yeah, if you want to have like your own separate chunk of your building, and that's going to be your humidor.
Yeah.
Like a big walk-in humidor, which most places have, and then the rest of your building is going to be free-range smoking, whatever. I don't see why they'd really care. It'd be like making it illegal to smoke in your own home.
Yeah, which is just ridiculous. It's illegal to smoke in your own car if you have kids, which I think an argument can be made for that law.
I can get on board with that because
it's one of those things where like it should be the voluntary choice of the parent, but enough parents were causing a problem that I understand why they had to do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't want to really put your kids.
You don't want to expose your kids unwillingly to that crap.
Yeah. Completely dissecting it.
I am ripping this cigar apart, my friend.
Is that all still binder?
No.
No, that's the filler.
Yeah, we're getting into... Oh no, that is still binder. Here's the filler. See?
Okay, that's really cool. So it... See, when I thought of the filler was you have like cigarette, where it's just like completely
tiny
ground
flakes.
up, yeah, and then the little bit bigger flakes, and then strands. But no, that's just like they just took like the filler leaf, rolled one really tight, rolled the next one, and just kept rolling them until they got to the binder and the.
Yep.
So yeah, all of that was probably the filler.
Yep.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's all I have for today. Do you have anything you want to add? I know this isn't a subject you're super knowledgeable on.
Oh,
and I looked most of this stuff up in the last couple days, and I didn't write anything down, so this is all from memory, so I may have gotten a couple things wrong.
We're interested in hearing suggestions and like your favorite cigars and ones we should try, or if you want to see us burn one and talk about it on camera, then
yeah, review it. In other words,
yeah. Let us know. Definitely, we definitely enjoy feedback.
Yeah, and we've had some feedback on like, hey, review more budget cigars, because we know that you guys like the premiums, and then like, you know, they like our premium reviews, but they also want to see some budget cigars like the Swishers and junk. Not to crap on the Swishers, but you've had a Swisher and you've had a premium, and you can tell the difference. So
I had a Black and Mild the other day. It was just like a really sweet cigarette.
Yep.
It doesn't even use tobacco, I think, for the wrapper. So, but
anyway, I think that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed our talk video, and we definitely wanted to start a conversation with it. So if you want to give us some feedback and let us know in the comments, that would be great. And I think that's it for today. Till we see you again, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jake.
We are the Dirt Road Men. That was some shitty clinkage.
Should we redo it?
No.
If you like this video, hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, drop us a comment, and check out our Facebook page for daily updates.